Good morning or afternoon if you're joining us from the East Coast, and welcome to the San Joaquin River Restoration Program 2020 Virtual Science Meeting. My name is Josh Newcomb, and I handle public affairs for the program. I want to thank you first for joining us today. It's been about 2 years since our last meeting, and we've hit some significant milestones since that period of time. You'll learn all about those achievements over the next 2 days. This is not our first science meeting we've held 4, including this one, but it is our first virtual science meeting. So we're going into this with all of the potential technical challenges that a virtual setting portends. With that said, if you're having technical difficulties, I want to encourage you to reach out to our excellent Stantec technical supports team, Craig Moyle, who can be reached via text or call at area code 916-642-6383, or Kirsten Pringle at area code 818-730-9561, and they will work with you to sort any of the technical issues that you're having. If you haven't already, I'd like to encourage you to visit the event website. That address is www.SJRRP2020VSM.net. Again, that's www.SJRRP2020VSM.net. There you can review a copy of the event agenda, learn all about the exciting and distinguished presenters that we have here today, and learn about some of the amazing science that's being generated through the program in our poster gallery. In addition, there are also several documents available to you, including the agenda in your handouts drop-down menu that you can see in your toolbar off to the right-hand side of your screen. Along those lines, this is a reminder that at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time today, poster authors will be hosting poster chat rooms associated with their science posters. The links to those chat rooms can be accessed through the poster section of the event website. So if you have a moment, because I feel it's definitely easier to multitask in a virtual environment, consider taking a moment to read through those posters and see which chat rooms you might like to join to hear more about the topics and have an opportunity to interact directly with the authors of those posters. While this year I won't be directing you to a bathroom location or where to find the local coffee shop, I do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to review. Please remember that all attendee microphones have been muted, and use of your webcam will be unavailable during the GoToWebinar portion of the meeting. We will have question and answer opportunities during both days of the meeting. Those Q&A periods today will take place following each panel, though you can submit your questions at any time. Questions will be responded to on a first-come, first-served basis. If we don't have enough time to respond to your question, you will receive a reply from the appropriate speaker after the conference, but hopefully we'll have enough time for everyone. There is a chat room feature in GoToWebinar, but we're asking attendees to please reserve the chat room to relay other messages to panelists and attendees. There are 2 ways to ask a question. The preferred method is to open the questions tab on your webinar dashboard and type in your question there. It'll be relayed to the meeting moderators. And the moderators will in turn read your question in the order they're received. Again, this is the preferred method. The other option is to use the hand raise feature in your webinar dashboard. And we'll do the best we can to keep track of these and to address them in the order we receive them as well. Either way, staff will unmute your microphone when we are replying to your question. If you're asking a question of a specific panelist, please indicate which panelist you're asking that to. And if you're a member of the media asking a question on the record, please identify yourself as such. Finally, a note that we are recording this conference to prepare and post a video for those that are not able to attend. We will announce availability of these videos once they're posted. A quick reminder for our speakers, please mute your microphone until you are presenting or responding to a question. Unless you are presenting or responding to a question, please keep your webcam off. And finally, all panelists are requested to turn on their cameras during the Q&A sessions at the end of the panels today. So, moving forward with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Donald Ports, or Don, as most of us refer to him. Don has been the program manager for the San Joaquin River Restoration Program for the last 2 years. He officially joined the office in 2015 as lead fish biologist, but had been working for the program since 2010 through Reclamation's Denver Technical Service Center. Dr. Ports has over 20 years of experience working with the Bureau of Reclamation on fisheries issues throughout the Western United States, with a particular focus on California's Central Valley. After receiving a doctorate in fish ecology from the University of California, Davis. Throughout his career, Dr. Ports has contributed greatly to fisheries research and survival of Chinook salmon. He also has been instrumental in the effort to reintroduce spring run Chinook salmon to the San Joaquin River, where they have been absent for over 60 years. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Don.
All right, thank you, Josh. I would also like, well, first start out here, good morning, everybody. And I also would like to welcome everybody to the 2020 San Joaquin River Restoration Program Science Meeting. Like Josh said, this is the 4th of such event. Pretty exciting that here we are during COVID-19, that we're still moving forward with this. You know, we started in 2015 in Los Banos. We had a meeting the following year in 2016 in Fresno, and then 2 years later in Sacramento. And here we are now in 2020. So let's, you know, I think this is monumental in the way that we're moving forward and sharing information with our friends and other people now across the country. We have folks all over the place calling in for this meeting. So this, I'm really pleased to see the interest. This event showcases program achievements and the hard work of talented engineers and biologists, scientists doing the most to implement the San Joaquin River Restoration Settlement by making great strides to restore naturally reproducing, self-sustaining populations of salmon and other fish within the restoration area. Also removing passage impediments, designing new structures for fish passage and entrainment protection, restoring valuable habitat for Chinook salmon, while bringing back the flows to the San Joaquin in a manner that reduces the impacts from the restoration flows to those adjacent lands. Like I said, the restoration program is a monumental effort that changes the values, relationships, and determination of the implementing partners, water users and farmers, environmental groups, and the public to restore what was once the most prolific salmon run in California, while continuing to deliver water to support some of the richest agricultural lands in the nation. 2 years ago, new to the job as program manager, I spoke right here about the value of collaborating for the future and the importance of collaboration to carry out the implementation of the Settlement and Settlement Act. Here I am, 2 years later, reinforcing the same concept of teamwork, but with evidence of the fruits of our labor, the return of the Chinook. With a continuous connected river throughout the restoration area from Friant Dam to the Merced, and let me see if I can, maybe you can just point out where, here it is, Friant Dam here, continuously connected river all the way down here through on the San Joaquin now, going north along in the restoration area to the confluence of the Merced, out to the ocean, and then into the bay, into the delta of the bay in the Pacific Ocean. So now we have a river that salmon are once again calling home. Advance the slide, please. Our river now, we're taking back second place. We have a connected river, the fish are calling home. We're once again the second longest river in California. Next slide, please. For the second year in a row, the San Joaquin River has experienced a naturally returning population of adult spring run Chinook salmon to the restoration area. This, as you see here on the left, this is the first documented spring run that we captured in the river, and reaching those major milestones in the San Joaquin that fish are. Over the next 2 days, the restoration program is going to take you on a journey of the return of the Chinook. Species reintroduction is a process that is not defined by a point in time. The presentations that follow will illustrate obvious signs. The presentations that will follow will illustrate obvious signs of the progress that we have gained in the road to recovery that it still has to be won. We remain cautiously optimistic on our future as some of the largest projects are yet to be completed. However, it is difficult to appreciate the success of restoration program without an understanding of the past. In my remaining time, I will attempt to provide some context of where this all began, but for more information and more in-depth coverage, visit the program's website at restoresjrr.net. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. All right, so to provide that context, here we are. The beginning of construction of Friant Dam in 1939 would provide promise of a reliable water source for agriculture of the San Joaquin Valley and would provide water throughout the Friant Current Canal stretching over 150 miles southward. Friant Dam's primary purpose is to divert water for irrigation through the Friant Current Canal and Madera canals and for flood control of the Central Valley farms and cities. Next slide, please. Completed in 1942, Friant Dam effectively trapped nearly all the watershed flows trapped all the watershed flows. Before the construction of Friant Dam, the San Joaquin River supported the southernmost populations of spring run and fall run Chinook salmon, where hundreds of thousands of Chinook salmon used to return each year. After Friant Dam was completed, part of the San Joaquin River began to run dry, cutting off the salmon from their holding, spawning, and rearing habitat. Within 10 years post-construction, probably the most prolific spring run population in California was gone. Next slide, please. 46 years later, fast forward to 1988. In 1988, a coalition of environmental groups led by the Natural Resource Defense Council filed a lawsuit challenging a renewal of long-term water service contracts between the United States and the Central Valley Project Friant Division. In 2004, a federal judge ruled that the Bureau of Reclamation violated Section 5937 of the California Fish and Game Code because the dam did not allow sufficient water into the San Joaquin River to keep fish populations below the dam in good condition, resulting in the local extinction of the spring run Chinook salmon. In 2006, after 18 years of litigation, NRDC et al. Versus Kirk Rogers et al., they reached a settlement. On September 13th, 2006, the settling parties, including NRDC, Friant Water Users Authority, and the U.S. Departments of Interior and Commerce, agreed on the terms and conditions of a settlement, which was subsequently approved by the U.S. Eastern District Court of California on October 23rd, 2006. In 2009, the San Joaquin River Restoration Settlement Act was passed to fund and implement the settlement. In October 2019, flows entered the river for the first time in 60 years outside of flood flows. The settlement makes for strange bedfellows. As you see here on the slide, these are all the players. We have the NGOs. These are the plaintiffs representing the environmental conservation and fishing interests led by NRDC. We have the Friant Water Authority with their 17 water and irrigation districts that made up Friant in 2006. We have the federal defendants, the Department of Interior, Bureau of Reclamation, Fish and Wildlife Service, and then the Department of Commerce, National Marine Fisheries Service. And then we have two state entities, the state of California and the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Department of Water Resources, which entered into a memorandum of understanding with the federal government to implement the settlement. We also have a restoration administrator who's going to speak to you later today. His primary role is issues recommendations for the flow release schedules on the San Joaquin River and provides recommendations to the program regarding specific elements of the settlement related to the restoration goal. And then we have the third parties. Those water users on the west side and the tributaries and the exchange contractors along the river down, through the restoration area. All of these players are intertwined with implementation of the settlement, with the federal and state government agencies leading the charge as implementing agencies. Next slide, please. The settlement establishes two primary goals. The restoration goal, to restore and maintain fish populations in good condition in the main stem of the San Joaquin River below Bryant Dam to the confluence of the Merced, including natural reproducing and self-sustaining populations of salmon and other fish. And then we have the water management goal, to reduce or avoid negative water supply impacts on all the Bryant Division long-term contractors that may result from the interim and restoration flows provided for in the settlements. Next slide. Next slide, please. Or maybe there's just a delay. So given these goals, and as we started implementing the program, in 2018, we, if there's one more slide. In 2018, a collective effort of stakeholders, including the implementing agencies, the settling parties, and third parties, came to an understanding that the funding currently identified and authorized in the Settlement Act is not sufficient to complete all the actions necessary to implement the Settlement and Settlement Act. The parties recommended a staged approach consistent with the Settlement and Settlement Act that will not involve any modifications or amendments to either or alter the obligations to fully implement the settlement. The funding constraint framework that was provided, and this was a vision to get the a volitional passage and flows back to the river and provide those protections from entrainment for the fish and for the water users. So stage one was to reestablishment of spring run and fall run Chinook salmon in the San Joaquin River between the Merced River and Bryant Dam, through the establishment of allowing these fish to move up on their own volitionally, sufficient flows to manage temperatures and provide that passage, and provide basic habitat needs for the species. Also in this is all a stage one process. In stage two, we also we would provide up to 4,500 CFS and a Reach 2B routing decision. But in stage one, our goal is to get to 2,500 CFS and provide the volitional passage and passage that to the Delta, as you see outlined in this map. The program has a long way to go, but stay focused and optimistic. We, the implementing agencies of the settlement, are committed to fulfilling our goals, and because of these incredible efforts, are witnessing the return of the Chinook. I thank you.
Thank you, Don.